October 1992. An actor shows up 3 hours late and tells Clint Eastwood his creative process can't be rushed. What Clint says next will end the man's career in just 5 words. Actor showed up 3 hours late. Clint said 5 words that ended his career. Pack your things. A method actor told Clint Eastwood, "My creative process can't be forced," after arriving late for the 3rd consecutive day. What Clint did next in front of the entire production team became the stuff of Hollywood legend. It was October 1992 on the set of Unforgiven, deep in the remote Alberta Badlands of Canada. Clint Eastwood was both directing and starring in what would become one of his most celebrated films, a groundbreaking Western that would eventually claim 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. The production ran like clockwork, disciplined, efficient, and actually ahead of schedule. This was vintage Clint. He'd built his reputation on respecting budgets, honoring crew time, and delivering quality films without waste. His sets were famous for being professional, focused, and drama-free. Then they brought on someone we'll call Derek Matthews. Matthews was an acclaimed stage actor from New York who'd recently made waves with a powerful performance in an off-Broadway production. He'd trained at elite acting programs, studied various method techniques, and viewed himself as a serious artist. His agent had fought hard to secure him a supporting role in Clint's film, a significant character with several crucial scenes. Clint's casting director had concerns. "He's talented," she warned Clint, "but he's known for being challenging, very method, very particular about his process." "How challenging?" Clint asked. He once lived homeless for 3 months preparing for a role. Stays in character between takes, that sort of thing. Clint thought it over. He respected actors who took their work seriously, but he also understood the line between dedication and self-absorption. "Give him the part," Clint decided, "but make sure he knows how we operate here." Matthews signed on, flew to Alberta, and attended the first production meeting. Clint outlined his expectations clearly. 6 a.m. call times when scheduled, professionalism on set, efficient shooting. The crew worked hard, and Clint expected the actors to match that commitment. Matthews nodded throughout the meeting, but seemed preoccupied, as though the practical aspects of filmmaking were beneath his concern. He was here to create art, not follow a timetable. Matthews's first shooting day was a Monday. Call time, 6 a.m. The location was an isolated ranch an hour from base camp, and capturing the morning light was essential for the scheduled scene. At 6 a.m., the crew stood ready, cameras positioned perfectly, lighting rigged to catch the golden dawn, other actors in full costume and makeup having sat in the chair since 5 a.m. Clint was in his director's chair, reviewing the shot list, mentally preparing for the day's work. The entire operation was primed and ready to go. But Derek Matthews' trailer door stayed closed, dark, silent. At 6:30, the first assistant director knocked politely. No response. At 6:45, he knocked harder. Still nothing. The crew began shifting uncomfortably, glancing at watches, murmuring. This wasn't how a Clint Eastwood set worked. At 7 a.m., after repeated attempts, Matthews finally opened the door, still in street clothes, hair uncombed, looking irritated at being disturbed rather than apologetic for being late. "I'm preparing," Matthews said, his tone suggesting the AD was interrupting something sacred. "My process demands deep internal work before I can inhabit the character. This can't be rushed. This isn't some sitcom where you throw on a costume and recite lines. This is serious craft." The AD explained they were losing the morning light, that the entire crew was waiting. "Art doesn't conform to schedules," Matthews replied, closing the door. Informed of the situation, Clint made a call. "We'll shoot around him. Move to scene 14. The crew scrambled to reposition for a different scene, burning valuable time and losing the perfect morning light they'd specifically planned for Matthews' scene. By the time Matthews emerged at 8:30 a.m., ready to work, they'd lost 2.5 hours. Clint said nothing. He simply adjusted the shooting schedule, got Matthews through his scenes efficiently, and moved forward. But he was observing. The second day Matthews was scheduled, the call time was again 6 a.m. Same remote location requiring an hour drive from base camp. Different scene, but equally reliant on morning light. Same 75 crew members who'd risen at 4:30 a.m. to be ready. At 6 a.m., Matthews' trailer was dark and quiet. At 6:30, still dark. The crew's frustration was now visible. Yesterday had been aggravating, but a pattern was forming. At 7 a.m., the AD knocked with diminished patience. Matthews answered, wearing a bathrobe, sipping coffee as though on holiday. "I told you yesterday," Matthews said, clear annoyance in his voice, as if the AD was the problem. "My artistic process takes time. I need to meditate, to center myself, to discover the character's emotional core. This isn't television where you simply show up and hit marks. This is cinema. This is art. We have 75 people waiting," the AD said carefully. "Then they'll learn patience," Matthews replied. "Great performances can't be mass-produced on an assembly line." He finally emerged at 8:45, over 2.5 hours late again. When the AD explained they'd have to postpone his scene and shoot it later, losing another perfect lighting window, Matthews shrugged. "If the light isn't right, the light isn't right," he said, as if this vindicated his tardiness rather than causing it. Clint observed this unfold from his director's chair. He said nothing to Matthews. He simply adjusted the schedule again, filmed what they could, and noted the emerging pattern. That evening, Clint's producer approached him. "We need to discuss Matthews. 2 days, 2 major delays. We're losing budget and schedule." "I'm aware," Clint said. "Should we warn him? Threaten termination?" "No threats," Clint said. "1 more day. Let's see if this is who he really is." The 3rd day Matthews was scheduled was critical. It was his most important scene. A dramatic confrontation requiring precise timing with other actors, complex camera choreography, and specific natural light they'd have for perhaps 90 minutes at most. They'd scheduled additional crew, brought in extra equipment, and coordinated multiple departments around this shoot. Call time, 6 a.m. sharp. At 5:45 a.m., the entire crew stood ready. Actors in position, cameras prepped, lights set, sound recording, everyone waiting for Derek Matthews. At 6 a.m., his trailer was closed. At 6:15, still closed. At 6:30, the AD knocked. No answer. At 6:45, louder knocking. Nothing. Clint stood up from his director's chair and walked over to Matthews' trailer himself. The entire crew watched. This was unprecedented. Clint's directing style was typically invisible from his chair, quiet and efficient. Him walking across set to personally confront an actor meant something significant was about to happen. Clint knocked on the trailer door, hard. 3 sharp raps that echoed across the silent set. After a long moment, Matthews opened the door. He was in his bathrobe again, holding a cup of tea, looking annoyed at the interruption. "We're ready for you," Clint said quietly. "I'm preparing," Matthews replied, his tone suggesting this should be self-evident. "My artistic process can't be rushed. I need to access deep emotional memories for this scene. It takes time. It takes—" "What time was your call?" Clint interrupted, his voice still quiet but with an unmistakable edge. "Call times are administrative conventions," Matthews said, launching into what was clearly a rehearsed monologue about art. "Real acting, serious acting, requires going to places that can't be scheduled. I'm not some television actor who hits marks and delivers lines. I'm creating a character from the inside out. That process—" "What time?" Clint repeated, not asking now, but commanding, his quiet voice somehow carrying more weight than any shout ever could. "Was your call?" Matthews blinked, derailed from his prepared speech about artistic integrity. "6. But that's just— It's 7 a.m., Clint said, each word deliberate and final. "You're an hour late, 3rd day in a row. 75 people have been waiting for you. People who arrived on time despite having the same early call you did. Great art demands sacrifice," Matthews said, regaining his confidence and returning to his justification. "Those people are being compensated to wait. That's literally their job. My job is to create something transcendent, something that will endure beyond this production schedule. You, of all people, should understand that true artistry can't be confined to—" "Pack your things," Clint said, cutting through the speech like a blade. Matthews stopped mid-sentence, mouth open. "Excuse me? Pack your things," Clint repeated, his voice still that same quiet rasp that had become iconic in Westerns. "You're fired. There's a car waiting to take you back to Los Angeles. You have 30 minutes to clear out." The entire crew had fallen silent. 75 people frozen, Watching this unfold, Matthews laughed, a nervous sound. "You can't fire me. We're in the middle of production. You need me for—" "No," Clint said simply. "We need someone professional, someone who respects other people's time, someone who understands that filmmaking is collaborative. That's not you. Pack your things." "This is insane," Matthews said, his voice rising now. "I'm creating art here. I'm giving you the performance of a lifetime. You can't fire someone for taking their craft seriously." "I'm not firing you for taking your craft seriously," Clint said. "I'm firing you for being late 3 days in a row and showing zero respect for the 75 professionals who've been waiting for you while you drank tea in your bathrobe." "My process—" "Your process," Clint interrupted, "involves being on set when you're supposed to be on set. If you can't do that, you can't work here. Pack your things." Matthews looked around at the crew, perhaps expecting support or sympathy. He found neither. 75 people who'd been up since 4:30 a.m., who'd driven an hour to this location, who'd been standing ready for over an hour, just stared back at him with zero sympathy. "You're making a terrible mistake," Matthews said to Clint. "I'm the best actor you'll ever work with. You're letting ego destroy what could have been—" "30 minutes, Clint said, cutting him off. Then he turned and walked back to his director's chair. Matthews stood in his trailer doorway for another moment, apparently waiting for Clint to reconsider or for someone to intervene. Neither happened. Finally, he went back inside and slammed the door. Clint turned to his first AD. "Call the actor we screen tested who came in second. See if he can be here tomorrow. Reschedule Matthews' scenes for next week." Then he addressed the crew. "We're moving to scene 22. Let's not waste the morning." The crew burst into activity, reorganizing for a different scene, relieved to be actually working instead of waiting. Several crew members were grinning. A few were trying not to laugh. Within 25 minutes, Derek Matthews emerged from his trailer with his bags, looking furious. A production van was indeed waiting to take him back to Los Angeles. He climbed in without speaking to anyone and left. Clint didn't watch him go. He was already focused on the next shot. The story spread through Hollywood before Matthews' van reached the airport. Clint Eastwood fired an actor for being late and citing artistic process. Became industry gossip within hours. By the next day, it was in the trade publications. Matthews' agent tried to spin it as creative differences or scheduling conflicts, but too many crew members had witnessed what happened. The truth emerged. Matthews had been fired for being unprofessional and hiding behind artistic process as justification. The impact on Matthews' career was swift and severe. Other directors who'd been considering him suddenly lost interest. Producers asked pointed questions about his reliability. Studios added him to unofficial, difficult actor lists. Within a year, Matthews was back doing regional theater. The promising film career his agent had worked so hard to build, completely destroyed by 3 late arrivals and 1 conversation with Clint Eastwood. The actor Clint hired to replace Matthews arrived 15 minutes early every day, knew his lines perfectly, and delivered an excellent performance that contributed to the film's eventual success. Unforgiven went on to win 4 Academy Awards. Clint won Best Director and Best Picture. The film is now considered one of the greatest westerns ever made. Derek Matthews is remembered, when he's remembered at all, as the actor who was fired from Unforgiven for showing up late and lecturing Clint Eastwood about artistic process. Years later, in an interview about directing, Clint was asked about the incident. His response was characteristically brief. "Film sets require discipline, not because of some authoritarian philosophy, but because hundreds of people are coordinating complex work. When one person decides their process is more important than everyone else's time, they're not an artist. They're just selfish." But the crew members who were there tell a more detailed story. They talk about how 75 people had been standing ready at 6 a.m., how they'd lost the perfect morning light 3 days in a row, how Matthews had dismissed their time as unimportant while he meditated in his bathrobe. And they talk about how Clint's firing of Matthews wasn't angry or dramatic. It was matter of fact, delivered in that quiet voice with the same calm he brought to every directing decision. "Pack your things. Car's waiting. 30 minutes. The incident became legendary not because it was loud or theatrical, but because it was the opposite. It was Clint simply drawing a line. Professionalism matters. Your time doesn't count more than 75 other people's time. Art doesn't excuse disrespect. To this day, artistic process can't be rushed is a phrase you don't want to use on a Clint Eastwood set. And showing up late while everyone else is ready is a career mistake you only get to make once. If this story of accountability and respect moved you, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to remember that talent doesn't excuse unprofessionalism, and real artists respect the people they work with. Have you ever seen someone confuse self-indulgence with dedication? Share your story in the comments.